As the Tennessee blew its ballast tanks to dive, it carried one of the 44-foot-long, 16-ton missiles in a launch tube. A Soviet surveillance ship hovered nearby, anxious for data on the missile system that cost $35 billion to develop. The Navy was also watching. The Trident II had succeeded in 15 out of 18 previous launches, all from dry land. The Trident II can supposedly deliver its 8 warheads to within 400 feet of a target 1,000 miles away. Then, the launch. 3, 2, 1, 0. Missile away. There wasn't much left to see. The Tennessee was not harmed. A nearby destroyer moved in to recover pieces of the Trident II. The Navy also picked up pieces of the failure.
I certainly don't think you can look at that or look at today and go back and say that Trident II is a waste of the taxpayers' money. I mean, certainly a single failure is hardly cause for that.
But the missile's opponents say the Trident II is dangerous because it's fast and accurate and might provoke the Russians.
The Trident II missile gives us a first strike capability. It may be that we'll never fire first, but as far as the Soviets are concerned, when we put this Trident II missile in our submarine, it will appear to them as though we are preparing for a first strike.
But the Navy continues to steer a course that includes 8 more underwater Trident II tests. Despite this failure, the Navy still plans to equip 16 nuclear submarines with 24 Trident II missiles each. That would give each sub 192 warheads worth of destructive punch. Charles Jacobs.
3 small boats from the international environmental group Greenpeace kept getting in the way. Twice, the protesters managed to get close enough to attach an anti-nuclear banner to the sub's mast. But an attempt by Greenpeace to board the submarine was unsuccessful. The environmental group claims a small Navy launch repeatedly rammed a Greenpeace sailboat. The Navy has no comment on that, and reporters were too far away to be able to tell for sure. All of this was going on in international waters, 50 miles off the coast of Cape Canaveral, Florida. Repeatedly, Greenpeace speedboats darted around the lumbering naval vessels, which were trying to clear the area for the underwater launch. Finally, late in the day, the Navy scrubbed the test. The Navy says it called it quits because it was concerned about the safety of the Greenpeace vessels. Last March, in the only other undersea test firing of the new Trident, something went wrong, and the nuclear missile became a spectacular $27 million pinwheel of failure. The Trident II D5 missile, The Trident II D5 missile, if it joins the U.S. arsenal 8 months from now, will be the backbone of what the military analysts call America's strategic deterrent. But Greenpeace wants to rid the seas of nuclear weapons and insists the multi-warhead Trident is a throwback to the Cold War. The Navy says it will keep trying to test the Trident II. As for the Greenpeace activists, they say they wanted to call attention to their disarmament agenda, and now that they've done it, they hint that they may not try to halt future tests. John Dudakis, CNN, reporting.
From a submarine, the Navy today pulled it off successfully.
Now, this was a first. The last time they tried to launch from a sub, the missile cartwheeled out of control and exploded. News Center 2's Dan Billow joins us live from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station with details of today's try. Dan?
Steve, as you pointed out, it was the first sea test launch of a Trident II missile as the Navy followed through on its attempt of Friday that anti-nuclear activists blocked. But this time it was the Soviet Navy that almost got in the way. A Soviet spy ship blundered into the danger zone at the last moment, but turned away just in time. Of tremendous firepower. You can see that the rocket came out of the water at an alarming angle, then righted itself and went on its way. A Navy spokesman said all was normal. Afterwards, the skipper of the Soviet vessel radioed his best regards to the captains of the 2 American vessels out there, and then went back to Moscow with what probably was some bad news. The Trident II has 7 remaining sea test launches left, but preliminary indications are that it passed very successfully its most important test ever. It will be deployed in March of next year for the first time. Andrea and Steve, the Trident II missile, according to one expert, a single Trident submarine can destroy the 40 largest cities in the Soviet Union and kill 100 million people, and that's coming in March.
Wow.
Awesome firepower. That did look peculiar coming out of the water, though. That's what it's supposed to do.
That's what they say.
All right. It's Dan Billow.
Launch was canceled because of Greenpeace boats circling the launch area. Channel 6 reporter Susan Cole says it was relatively smooth today.
Today, there were no escort ships accompanying the nuclear submarine, the USS Tennessee, as it headed toward its launch site. On board the U.S. tracking ship, the Range Sentinel, there were no guests. The decks were virtually empty except for the crew and a few journalists. And there were no signs of Greenpeace this time around either. Everything was running smoothly until a Soviet intelligence ship was spotted heading toward us at full speed.
Then, just 15 minutes before liftoff, there was some question whether the Soviets would move into the launch zone.
I will have to stop the count if you do not turn west now. Over. Okay. I understand.
Finally, the Soviets complied with the Navy's request and then maneuvered into position so they too could track the missile.
0. Missile away.
To those who witnessed the first launch attempt in March, it appeared as if this one would also go out of control. But that wasn't the case. The missile pierced the skies just as the Navy had said it would.
That was the way it was supposed to look, and that was normal. For this missile, this is a big missile, and it has a program maneuver in like that.
The Navy plans to have 7 more sea tests before putting the missiles into the new Trident submarines next March. On board the Range Sentinel, Susan Cole, WCPX Channel 6 News.
To be delayed. News from Washington.
On board. It's daybreak and the Range Sentinel has already been underway for over 2 hours. The ship's photographers maneuver their huge tracking cameras into place, while family and friends of the submarine crew, journalists, and those who built the missiles wait patiently. Although the ship belongs to the Navy, 42 civilians are also on board to help operate it. It was once a troop carrier, but now its primary mission is to provide communications and telemetry support for missile-carrying submarines. Its purpose this day is to help test the Navy's newest missile, the Trident II.
I think if you look at providing the national defense through a strategic deterrent, the Trident II program is extremely economical compared to some of the alternatives or the other portions of the triad. I would hesitate to put a price on peace, and that's basically what we're guaranteeing with this program.
Just a few months ago, the Range Sentinel was outfitted with huge satellite dishes and a massive room full of telemetry equipment to gather information on a rocket's performance. Today, all of that has been condensed into a tiny compartment beneath these two domes. As the ship approaches the launch site some 50 miles off the coast of Cape Canaveral, the crew is in place and must now be on the lookout for freighters, fishing vessels, airplanes, protesters, or Soviet intelligence gathering ships, which may interfere with the launch. And then, when the range is clear, comes the moment everyone has been waiting for.
0, missile away.
It was a great launch to witness. As the Navy said yesterday, the launch was a big success, and after spending almost 36 hours on board ship, I think I'm glad to be back on land.
It must have been quite an adventure for both of you out there, but this might seem like old hat because you were out there last week as well.
Well, it's always exciting, as I said, because you never know how well the rocket's going to perform. And last March, it didn't perform very well. As you know, it pinwheeled, and then they had to destroy it. So it was a big relief seeing the missile get off safely yesterday.
But peace with the U.S. Navy today. The group was trying to disrupt the test launch of a Trident missile when its members saw a Navy vessel ram their ship. The Navy was running the missile test in the Atlantic Ocean off of Port Canaveral. Joining us now live from Cape Canaveral is Florida News Network reporter Sharon Dennis. Sharon, what happened out there today?
Well, Navy officials claim they warned Greenpeace repeatedly, and when that didn't work, took appropriate action using minimum force. But Greenpeace officials say they have a videotape which gives a different account. Greenpeace claims this happens again and again. A Navy salvage ship bashing 2 holes in the side of its vessel. There are no injuries, but those on board are worried.
Oh, it was scary. It was scary having them turn the high-pressure water hoses on a peaceful protest, and we're continually ramming a peaceful ship.
Greenpeace's 500-ton converted tug was tracking the USS Tennessee, protesting the Trident II missile test firing. The ships were about 50 miles off the coast of Cape Canaveral.
This was an act of piracy. We're on the high seas. They had absolutely no right to damage our ships. We were maintaining the right-of-way, the lawful right-of-way.
Despite what happened early this morning, the Navy reports the Trident II test fired without problem. And a Navy spokesperson says Greenpeace was warned several times, and the Navy used minimum force to keep the environmental activists clear.
To make sure that the United States Navy can work and do its job on the high seas. We protected that right today.
But Greenpeace officials feel this video proves the Navy did not use minimum force.
Considering it's a very peaceful protest, I thought it was a very ambitious move on their part.
Right now, the Greenpeace vessel is headed toward Jacksonville. There are apparently 2 holes in it and a ruptured fuel tank. Back to you.
Sharon, was the Greenpeace ship in any danger? Were the people on that ship in danger of coming into contact with that submarine or the missile? What does the Navy have to say about that?
Well, the Greenpeace people we talked with said that they didn't feel they were in any specific danger of going overboard when they had that confrontation with the Navy. The Navy officials say that they wanted them out of that test firing safety zone. They didn't need to be there, and it was hindering their efforts today.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. That's Sharon Dennis reporting live to us from Cape Canaveral, and she did say that the Greenpeace ship, which was damaged today, is headed to Jacksonville.
Due to arrive in Jacksonville shortly. The Greenpeace was damaged and is coming here tonight for repairs. Members of the environmental group Greenpeace were protesting the Navy's test firing of a Trident II missile in international waters off the coast of Cape Canaveral. A Navy spokesman says Greenpeace was repeatedly warned to sail out of the area, and when the protest vessel refused to leave, the Navy resorted to force. Greenpeace recorded the encounter on videotape.
For some reason, the Greenpeace organization feels that they can hazard themselves, hazard those conducting the launch by violating those warnings given to them very clearly to stay clear of this hazardous launch area. So my objective was to use the minimum force possible to keep them clear of the Trident 2D5 launch.
The Greenpeace received 2 large holes in its hull from what the group describes as an unbridled act of aggression by the Navy. With the protesters out of range, the submarine Tennessee successfully launched its nuclear missile.
Way to Jacksonville, do you expect it momentarily?
Not quite momentarily. It should be here about 12:30 or shortly thereafter.
Is Greenpeace considering any action against the Navy for the damage sustained by the ship?
Well, certainly right now we're exploring all different possible sorts of options.
Now, we've heard the Navy say that Greenpeace is endangering itself by coming so close. We saw the videotape of the raft right on top of where the submarine is. Do you consider yourself at risk when you're in an environment like that?
Certainly our people are at risk, but the risk that the D5 missile poses to international security is much greater, and we feel that it's important to be there to draw the world's attention to the missile system, costing the U.S. taxpayers $40 billion for something that strategically gives us no great advantage over what we presently have, over our present missile, Trident 1 missile system.
Okay, thank you
because of it to Florida in a failed effort to try to block the launch of a Trident II missile. When the Navy shoved the boat out of the way, it punched a 3-foot hole in the hull. Greenpeace called the incident an act of aggression against a peaceful protest in international waters. And
U.S. Navy vessels reportedly rammed an unarmed ship owned by Greenpeace, leaving a 3-foot hole in the ship's side. The group was protesting the test firing of the Trident II missile from a nuclear submarine. The Greenpeace is the same ship that disrupted a Trident II test last July. In order to go ahead with the program, the Navy must successfully complete 6 sea launches so far. They're 2 for 4. With us in our Washington studio is Greenpeace activist Steve Schellhorn, and good morning. I think the Navy is going to take issue with your use of the word rammed, that if you were rammed, the Greenpeace would not still be afloat, much less steaming back to port. But what is your version?
Well, we were rammed 8 to 10 times over about an hour-and-a-half period. We've got 2 holes in the side of the hull to show it and plenty of videotape. What happened out there was a very belligerent and premeditated and repeated series of attacks against our ship. It was clear from watching the Navy earlier in the week that they had planned to do something along these lines. And
what do you mean to do something along these lines? They were going to do something along the lines of testing a Trident II, right?
They were going to disable our ship. It was very clear from the outset yesterday morning that was their goal. They began to ram our ship even before we were able to get our inflatable boats into the water, and they tried to do that while we launched the boat.
You spotted a monitoring ship in port and a submarine, and you followed it, assuming that they were going to try to complete that performance evaluation, and it was your objective to disrupt it, correct?
Yeah, we were out there in a peaceful protest of the Trident II missile, which is the country's most expensive nuclear weapon system. And it's a weapon system that's totally unnecessary and hasn't working.
You maintain that you had the legal right to be there?
Of course we do. It's international waters. The Navy has absolutely no right to cordon off large areas of the sea. Just because they've been doing it for a little while doesn't mean that they are legally entitled to do so. And certainly that will be an issue in court.
Well, let's get the Navy side of the story, if we could. The commander on scene during Monday's Trident missile launch was Navy Vice Admiral Roger Bacon, who joins us now from WAVY-TV in Norfolk, Virginia. Good morning, Admiral.
Good morning, Jane. Good to be with you.
What is your version? Did you ram with the intent of disabling the Greenpeace?
We had a very successful Trident II launch to further our ability to maintain strategic deterrence in this country. It is a very successful program. We had, in any test program, we have
had a mechanical problem, and this latest launch was our solution to it with some great engineering to do a successful launch.
That's a story for another day. We're talking about the Greenpeace incident.
As far as the shouldering, the Greenpeace was warned repeatedly by myself and through notice to airmen, notice to mariners, to remain clear of the submarine.
The
remain
notice
outside of 5,000 yards.
I don't want to seem rude and abrupt, but it's important that you clarify the notice to mariners is Navy policy for clearing an area where a test firing will be launched. How would Greenpeace have gotten that notification if it was given?
That notification was sent out on 30 November, 4 days before the launch, repeatedly transmitted 4 times a day. All the people in the area know that is a hazardous area.
That's absolutely not true.
That is absolutely true.
We called the Coast Guard 12 hours before, and they told us of no such warning.
Well, Mr. Selhorn, if it was true, wouldn't Greenpeace have simply considered that an invitation?
We wouldn't have considered an invitation. However, we would have been there anyways.
That's what I mean.
The point
is that they were warned repeatedly on scene. They did very unsafe things by having boats in the water after being warned.
Just because in East Germany that the government asks people not to protest doesn't mean that they don't do it, and that's what we were doing. We're exercising our right.
We respect the right of the organization to protest, but to do it safely. Remaining outside of 5,000 yards is not too much to ask. The Soviet AGI, the intelligence collector, remained outside of 5,000 yards at our request.
Well, what the
and they can do all the press they need. But to do the unsafe things in which if we have a malfunction with that missile, I can't ensure the Greenpeace activists' safety. If something happens to that missile, then they will really be in trouble. So in shouldering, we were directing my forces to make sure that he is away from where that launch will be.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to leave it for now. I guess you both, to a degree, got what you needed. The Navy had the successful test of the launch, and Greenpeace got worldwide publicity. We'll leave it at that for today. Gentlemen, thank you. We'll be back in a moment.